various statutes with respect to employment and labor.
Further debate? The member from York Simcoe.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I'm very pleased to be able to pick up where I left off last week and finish the remaining time for some remarks with regard to second reading of Bill 109, the Employment and Labor Statute Law Amendment Act 2015. Just to recap briefly what this bill is about, I'd just make a few comments about the other parts of the bill that I referenced last week. This bill, if passed, would make a number of changes to workplace laws, including the labor relations provisions of the Fire Protection and Prevention Act, the Public Sector Labor Reform Relations Transition Act, and the Workplace Safety and Insurance Act. Section 1 of Bill 109 proposes changes to the labor relations provisions of the Fire Protection and Prevention Act. This section of Bill 109 was drafted in consultation with the Ontario Professional Firefighters Association, and so is supported by firefighters across the province. This bill includes important provisions that will assist municipalities that employ full-time firefighters who also serve as volunteer firefighters in other municipalities, the so-called double hatters, as they will provide a measure of protection for the full-time position held by the double hatter. The proposed change means the International Association of Firefighters will no longer be able to force its members who volunteer in composite departments, that is, professional, full-time, and double hatter departments, where there are also unionized full-time members, to stop doing so. The Association of Municipalities in Ontario has been requesting this change for years. In my opinion, this legalization of double hatters is the best part of this bill. Bill 109's proposed amendments to the Public Service Labor Relations Transition Act applies when the government restructures or amalgamates services. These changes provide that a vote to determine a new bargaining unit is not required if a prescribed percentage, at least more than 60%, of employees in the bargaining unit were previously represented by a single union. This change will have the greatest impact on health services integrations, such as those involving hospitals. While I question the justification for many of these amendments, the Ontario Public Sector Employees Union is adamant that these changes should not go ahead because they may take away the right of an employee to choose what labor or bargaining unit they belong to. I would just say that personally I sympathize with their objection because these changes result in less choice for an employee, and as a progressive conservative, I believe in more choice. But the remarks I want to make today center more around the Workplace Safety and Insurance Act. And so I will look to the question of protecting workers from anecdotal-based allegations, and this deals with claim suppression. As I began describing last Thursday before my time was over, Section 3 of Bill 109 would make a number of amendments to the Workers' Safety and Insurance Act. The focus of these amendments is to stop claim suppression by employers and increasing death benefits to survivors. The Workplace Injury Claim Suppression final report, completed by the consulting group PRISM, was used by the government as a rationale for this section of Bill 109. That report needs to be examined with this bill to assess the need for the changes proposed. And when we read PRISM's report, we find that there's actually little evidence of claims submission as a problem in the workplace. Claims suppression is defined by PRISM as, quote, actions taken by an employer to induce a worker not to report an injury or illness, or alternatively to report the severity of an injury or illness or the amount of time, lost time attributable to that injury or illness. The inducement may be coercive, i.e. the inducement may involve an actual or perceived threat of sanctions. Alternatively, the inducement may be accommodating, i.e. the employer may offer the worker benefits in lieu of workers' compensation if full WSIB benefits, especially lost time benefits, are not claimed. So an employer must induce a worker not to report or to underreport an injury to WSIB. And I want to just jump in here and parenthetically insert a response by the Construction Employers Council on WSIB. And here's just a brief moment of what they have to say. Instead of celebrating a 45% reduction in the construction lost time injury rate over the last 10 years, such achievements are disbelieved as evidence of claim suppression. Enough. And that's what we're saying. So an employer must induce a worker not to report or underreport. But to induce a worker, the employer must have intent to do so. And this is where the report fails us. The PRISM report fails to introduce a single motivation explaining this unlawful behavior. And I quote, "There is no strong evidence to support credible interferences on the motivation for claim suppression. Indeed, it is unlikely that conventional research methods could ever generate valid estimates of the incidence of claim suppression or incontestable accounts of the motivation for claim suppression." The report's inflammatory conclusion is, quote, "Claim suppression appears to be a real problem," but at the same time, the report incredibly offers that, quote, "It is not feasible to develop even a weak estimate, let alone a credible estimate of the incidence of employer-induced claim suppression." The report also admits that the survey evidence is too limited to support any plausible estimate of employer-induced claim suppression. It seems then to me that what we are looking at is trying to create a solution for a problem that doesn't exist. The PRISM report relies on anecdotes and fundamental contradiction of the principle of innocence until proven guilty to support its conclusions. For these reasons, we should throw out the PRISM report with regard to consideration of this bill. Its only use is to comment on the risk of claim suppression, not its actual prevalence. It is clear to me and many others that this section of Bill 109 is solving a problem that does not exist. Worse, the maximum fine that could be imposed on a corporation found guilty of an offense would be increased from $100,000 to $500,000. Furthermore, a new administrative penalty may be applied by the Ontario Labour Relations Board up to any amount. In summary, there is no justification for increasing the fine fivefold. Claim suppression is already an offense under the WSIA. Add to this picture PRISM's unfounded conclusions. Then we must ask ourselves, why does this bill deal with the issue of claim suppression at all? The final thing I would like to comment on is that I was at least underwhelmed with the Minister of Labour's introductory speech on this bill. His speech was 9 minutes. The Minister had the opportunity to speak for up to an hour to explain the purposes of the bill and the rationale for its proposed changes. Given the breadth of the bill and its potential impacts, I am disappointed that the Government Minister failed to enlighten the members of this House on the true nature of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions and comments? The member from Welland.